I hate events like this. I feel like a spare part while all the influential people are mingling and congratulating each other. Caroline, my wife, is busy talking about her charity. I've already met the local MP, and then there's Roger Dewey, the local head of Children's Services. If he lays a hand on her again, I swear I'll confront him. The only reason these people are here is because Caroline is doing so well, and they hope to claim some credit. They make me sick. The problem is, I also make myself sick. Look at me, a college lecturer teaching engineering. I settled for a secure position and a good pension, and I hate myself for it. Before the company went bankrupt, I was the top man for control engineering. Then came the crunch, and it was a matter of either moving away or taking a job at the college. We couldn't disrupt the children's education, so I opted for a secure salary and pension. 10 years later, the children are at university, and I'm still here. Meanwhile, Caroline has embraced her new freedom and shown the world what she can do. Caroline always said I was the clever one, while she downplayed her own abilities. I knew differently. She was smart in her own way. Caroline was an organizer and a persuader of people. She trained as a nursery nurse but was wasted in that role. By the time the children left school, she was working as a frustrated nursery manager for an organization she was capable of running. When the manager resigned, I urged her to take on the role. She had the ability but lacked the confidence, so I did my best to give her that confidence. I wanted her to fulfill her true potential because that's what you do when you love someone. She had given her all for us, and now it was her turn. I didn't realize it would consume her life, leaving no room for me. Okay, I admit it, I'm jealous. Not of her job because it's better than mine, but because it gets all her time and attention, leaving nothing for me. I don't resent her success. I'm proud of what she's achieved. It's just that it's ruined our plans. When the children left, it was supposed to be our time to do things together, see the world. Now that plan has gone to hell, and I hardly see her. That's why I'm here. If I don't show up to these events, I never get to spend time with her. Who knows, if it goes well, we might even share a small moment of intimacy when we get home. We take our seats for the presentation ceremony. Caroline waves as she makes her way up to the stage. I move to the far side of the room and can just see her take her seat in the wings next to that troublesome figure from Children's Services. I watch Caroline go through her speech. Until recently, she would have asked for my help, but I have no idea what's in this speech. A local radio celebrity steps up to the podium and outlines the agenda for the evening, and the room becomes quiet. Caroline is up for 2 awards, one for her organization and one individual. I sit through the first part, waiting for the non-government organizations awards. We've known for months that Caroline's project had won this award. She was even asked who she wanted to present it. Like a fool, I suggested the head of Children's Services. It doesn't hurt to get these people on side, I told her, before I found out what kind of person he was. Now we come to the organization that has made the most progress in childcare, said our Master of Ceremonies. Presenting this award is the head of Children's Services for Welfordshire, Mr. Roger Dewey. People applaud, but not me. This guy is unpleasant. He's only been in the job for 6 months and already has a reputation. He's talking about how the organization rose from the ashes, but that was 2 years ago, and the council he represents was part of the original problem. Someone has briefed him well, though. He tells us who the winner is, and Caroline steps forward to receive her award. He walks back to his seat, and I wait for the speech. Normally, I'm as familiar with the speech as she is. I'm her trial audience and advisor. But this time, I have no idea what she will say. She looks back at Dewey, and he nods to her. Almost immediately, I sense something is wrong. She's talking politics, discussing the problems caused by the government's funding cuts. I've always said that the people you criticize today might be in power tomorrow. I glance around the room and see uncomfortable faces. Now she's thanking people, the trustees, the nursery managers, the caseworkers. She looks back at him again and says, "Last but by no means least, I'd like to thank Mr. Roger Dewey. Without his help and support, we would never have made it this far. I ask myself what help and support he provided. This award was decided before he even took the job. Why is she thanking him without even a mention of me? I was the one who helped her handle a hostile committee that wanted to shut down the project. She sits down, and he places his hand on her back. He moves his hand across her shoulders, and then lower down her back. This isn't a congratulatory gesture from a colleague. It's more personal. Suddenly, everything is clear. The late-night meetings, the weekend conferences, and the fundraising trips to London, all explained in an instant. I get out of my seat. She's making no attempt to stop him until our eyes meet. I have no idea what expression I'm wearing, but it can't be pleasant. Her mouth falls open in shock, and she gasps before shaking herself and continuing to speak while Dewey quickly withdraws his hand. I make my way to the aisle and walk out of the room. Once outside, I throw up in a litter bin near the door and lean against the wall, gasping in the cold night air. I consider my situation. It can't be true, not my Caroline. But deep down, I know it is. I've been teaching for 10 years, and I learned something about body language. His hands were clearly indicating ownership. What do I do now? Do I go back in there and pretend nothing happened? Can I look at Caroline without seeing Dewey's inappropriate behavior? What about him? Can I resist confronting him as soon as he comes near me? Going back inside is not an option. I need to think, and I can't do it here. Where's my car? Finding my car keys, I press the unlock button and the lights flash in response. Sitting in my car, I feel somewhat insulated from the problems outside. I start the engine and head home. I can think there. Caroline has another award to come, so she'll be busy here for at least another hour. I'm on the road before the arguments in my head start. What are you doing? Asks a voice in my head. You can't be sure there's anything going on. It's not like you caught them in the act. But I know what I saw. It was obvious, but there might be a reasonable explanation. Yes, he was too familiar with her, but is that enough? As I drive down the hill toward the bridge, I reach a crossroads. 2 cars are approaching. The first car slows to turn left, and the second car attempts to pass, but there isn't enough space. I react too slowly. The car tries to pull back in, but I hit its rear end, knocking me sideways. The impact triggers the airbags, and I can see nothing. There is another impact, and everything goes black. Blue lights are flashing outside. I reach for the door, and a sharp pain shoots through me. I can't move. It feels like I'm pinned to the seat. The door is pulled open, and a stocky man in green overalls stands before me. Hello, mate. My name's George. I'm a paramedic. What should I call you? John. Okay, John. Let's see what we've got here. He gets out a flashlight and looks around, then opens the rear door and checks inside. John, mate, I'm not going to lie to you. We're in serious trouble here. There's a tube from the bridge that's come through the car, through you, and into the seat. I'm going to call the fire and rescue service to get you out. George leaves me, and I wonder how things could get any worse. In a few minutes, he returns and talks to me while we wait. More blue lights signal the arrival of the fire and rescue team. George goes to talk to them, and then comes back to me. Well, John, I hope you're not too attached to this car, because they're going to have to cut you out of it. The car's a write-off, but we'll get you out. I nod, and George starts to move out of the way. George, are my legs all right? Yeah, mate, they look fine. It's just that I can't feel anything down there. His cheerful expression fades, and I realize I'm in serious trouble. They cut the car apart. First the doors, then the roof. The floodlights make everything too bright, and I see the tube sticking out of my abdomen. George reassures me, but the process is slow. As they cut through the tube, I'm surrounded by people, and someone injects something into the back of my hand. Everything fades to black again. I wake in a brightly lit room. My throat is dry. Caroline is here, still wearing the dress from the presentation. She has her back to me, the same back Dewey was touching. I'm lying on my side, propped up by pillows. I search for water, but can't find any. Water, I croak. She turns at the sound of my voice and rushes to the bed. Thank God you're all right. I've been so worried about you, she says, pressing the call button to summon the nurse. What happened? What were you doing? The nurse bustles into the room, and Caroline makes room for her. How are you, Mr. Fletcher? Thirsty. Very thirsty. I can't give you any water yet. It might make you sick. Here, suck on this. It will help a bit. She places a small ice cube in my mouth. It's too cold but soothing. Try not to talk too much. I'll tell the doctor you're awake, and he'll be in to talk to you soon. Caroline returns, her eyes red and tears running down her cheeks. She takes my hand and squeezes it. When the presentation was over, I looked for you but couldn't find you anywhere. When I saw the car was missing, I had to get a taxi home. You mean Dewey didn't give you a lift? I start to ask but struggle to speak with the ice cube in my mouth. I pull it out for a moment. Why are you here, Caroline? What do you mean? Why am I here? The hospital called and told me my husband was seriously injured. I came straight here. What else was I supposed to do? I find it difficult to be cruel to her despite my inner turmoil. Go home, Caroline. Get some sleep. You look like you need it. I certainly do. Anyway, you heard the nurse. I mustn't talk much. I put the ice cube back in and suck on it. Maybe I'll wait and talk to the doctor. I'm not a child. The doctor can say all he needs to say to me. If you really want to do something for me, you can call Bob at the college and let him know what happened. I won't be working for a while. What's wrong, John? Why are you acting like this? I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with being injured. Maybe you're right. I should go home and come back later when you're feeling better. She gets up, picks up her coat, and bends to kiss my cheek. I'll be back later, she says as she puts her coat on. She reaches the door and turns back. I love you, she says, and a tear runs down her cheek. The doctor, a cheerful sort, arrives and has arranged for me to have something to drink while he views my scans on his tablet. You're a lucky man, Mr. Fletcher. The tube missed all the vital organs. How do you feel? Like a survivor of the Zulu Wars. I'm expecting Michael Caine to come in any minute with a progress report. What? Oh yes, the film. I caught it on Netflix a while back. Good to see you've kept your sense of humor. As I said, you've been very lucky. Just 2 broken ribs that we've wired back in place. No lasting damage. Then why don't my legs work? His expression changes. His smile fades, and he looks concerned. He uncovers my legs and goes through a routine of tests. He pulls a pin from the collar of his scrubs. Yell when you feel something, he says. I don't see what he's doing, but I can guess. Pull your toes down for me. I tell my toes to move, but nothing happens. Now up, he says. I send the command again, but my toes remain still. He covers my legs again and makes notes on his tablet. Okay, it looks like we've got some nerve damage. I don't want you to panic. It's probably temporary. When the ribs broke, they also displaced your spine a bit. We know none of the nerves were severed, but they might be deadened, or there could be some swelling putting pressure on the nerves. We'll wait a few days and do more tests. Not so lucky after all, Doc. You're still alive, Mr. Fletcher. Given the circumstances, I'd say that's lucky. He leaves, and I fall asleep. The nurses come in to make their observations, and I go back to sleep. It's evening now. The nurses move me into a sitting position and administer more pain relief. At 6:30 p.m., Caroline walks into my room. She looks less tired, but her eyes are still red. She smiles as she walks over to the bed and kisses me on the lips. You're looking better. What did the doctor say? He said I'm a lucky man. A week ago, I would have agreed with him. You are lucky. We both are. You survived. And we still have each other. Do we, Caroline? Do we still have each other? This is the first time in months that I've seen her before 9 p.m. She looks down at the floor. I wait for her to come clean, but she doesn't. Instead, she offers a small smile. You're right. I've been neglecting us. But that's all going to change. It's time I got my priorities straight. I'm going to delegate more. They owe me some leave, so when I get you home, I'll take a few weeks off to take care of you. I'm not coming home. Don't be silly. Of course, you're coming home. Who will take care of you? You're not just going to get up and walk out of here. For a second, I wonder if she knows about my legs, but then I realize that even the nurses won't be informed until there is a diagnosis. No, she expects me to be discharged in the next 10 days. My ribs won't let me do much, and I doubt I'll be out of here for a few weeks. But when they do discharge me, I won't be coming home. You see, I know what's been going on between you and Dewey. Her face begins to redden, and she looks away briefly before meeting my gaze again. There's nothing going on between us. Who told you such a thing? He did. Dewey said it just before I left. He said it to me, and anyone else who was interested. What are you talking about? He hardly spoke to you last night, and I don't blame him. I thought you were being quite rude. Not as rude as I would have been if I'd known at that point. I only knew of his reputation. Oh no, it was when you were on stage. He didn't need words to make his point. You know what happened? You saw me get up looking angry, but I didn't know you were watching me. Watching? Do you think I'd wanted to witness you two being close? I admire you and feel proud to see you achieving what I always knew you could. That's how I felt when things started going wrong, when Dewey had his hands all over your back and you did nothing to stop him. I watch her undo her top button and try to cool off by fanning the front of her blouse. Why do they make these places so hot? She says rhetorically, without expecting an answer. All right. He gave me a little pat on the back, but that's surely not worth splitting up over. It was more than that. I know you, Caroline. For you, caressing and rubbing your back can be more than just friendly gestures. The disturbing thing is that he knew enough to do the same things I would. Tears start to form in her eyes. It gives me no pleasure to see her like this. She dabs at her eyes with a tissue and tries to steady her breathing. She wants to say something, so I wait. I was going to tell you last night when we got home, but after finding out what happened, I decided to wait until you were more able to handle it. I'm so sorry, John. I didn't mean for it to happen. Really, I didn't. I was under such pressure, and I buckled. Are you saying he pressured you? Well, yes, no, sort of. At first, yes. But does it matter? It's over. I told him last night never to touch me again. It was a brief and unpleasant encounter. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Now I'm pleading with you, John. Please let me try to repair the damage. We can get past this. I know we can. I wish I had your confidence, Caroline. But the fact is, I don't. I lost my self-respect a long time ago. Finding out I've lost your respect has affected me deeply. You're not the only one who made sacrifices for our family. I sacrificed a good career because we couldn't disrupt the children's education by moving to another part of the country. When they left for university, you started your career again, and we stayed because I wanted you to see how good you are. I can make logical decisions and help with plans, but I could never handle people the way you do. You are so good at managing things. I had to give you the chance to spread your wings and fly. Now you have that confidence, and you can do it on your own. Where does that leave me? For 10 years, I've been teaching kids who aren't interested in subjects far below the level I used to work at. It drove me crazy. As the years went by and the job became more quantifiable and political, I hated it more. The only reason I stuck it out was because it was for us. Now, I find there is no us. What am I going to do? Nobody who heard me speak last night would think I've lost respect for you. You mean the speech where you said you owe everything to Dewey? No, I mean the second one, where I told everyone how I owe everything to my wonderful, supportive, unselfish husband. People were calling for you to stand up. but you weren't there. I had to tell them you were very shy. If you want to move away to find a better job, we can do that. I'll give up my job and look for something else, wherever we end up. Please, John, let me try to make it right." And how will quitting your job make anything right? It will just be another thing for me to feel guilty about. It's all right. I'm not blaming you. I'm not the man you married. The man you married would never settle for security. He would have found a way around the problem. Even if it meant setting up his own consultancy, he wouldn't have ended up like me. I don't blame you. I don't respect myself either, but I do love you and respect you. All the things you see as negatives, I see as positives. Yes, you've changed, but you had a family to support. I wanted you to take the job at the college. I wanted a regular income, and to be sure we could pay the mortgage at the end of the month. I'm sorry I never realized how much you hated the job. If you want to quit, that's fine by me. I can support us. Please, John, can't we leave all of this until I've got you back home? Give us some time. It will all seem clearer then. She doesn't see that she is just digging herself deeper into a hole. There is an uneasy silence as Caroline continues to dab at her eyes with a tissue. I break the silence. I have to get back my self-respect and be the man I know I can be, just like you. I need to do that. I can't kid myself anymore. What I thought I had, the reason I used to accept the situation, is gone. We can do that together. I can help you like you helped me. I really will be the best wife I can be. You've already been a wonderful wife for more than 20 years, a better wife than I had a right to ask for. But that's over. You can't be part of the solution because you're part of the problem. Now comes what I expect to be the final salvo. What am I going to tell the children? Whatever you like. Tell them we grew apart, or that I couldn't live with your work commitments. You could even tell them the truth. I'll go along with whatever you say as long as you don't make me the bad guy. That's it. It's over. There are no more arguments to bring up. But what about Roger? Does he get off scot-free? He's ruined our lives and walks away without a scratch. It takes two to tango, Caroline. I know that, but it was him who did all the chasing. I deserve what's happening. But you've done nothing to deserve this. You're sitting there acting calm, but I know this is breaking your heart. I hate myself for what I've done. But he doesn't care. So she's spoken to him today. Well, what did she expect? That he'd be grief-stricken. I bet he tried to talk her into letting him come around tonight. That would explain why she's so disgusted. I don't know why I'm so calm. Maybe it's all the opiates they're giving me. You shouldn't worry about Dewey. He'll face consequences. By the end of tomorrow, the inquiry will have started, and there will be several women ready to come forward with their allegations. The college crush is one of them. I tried to tell you about her 2 weeks ago, but you were too tired. She's sobbing her heart out, and all I can do is sit and watch. I'm torn between wanting to comfort her and thinking she deserves it. Dewey asked her out to dinner to discuss her funding needs. He got annoyed when she wanted to bring her husband. She realizes what a fool she's been and what a worthless person Dewey is. She gets up and runs out of the room with tears streaming down her face. I sit and wait. I know she will come back. It isn't over until she has one more try. Or so she thinks. She returns. The tear streaks are washed away, as is all her makeup. Her eyes are still red, and she looks ready to cry again at any moment. So, are you going to report him? You know that it will reflect on me. You'll be all right. Your committee won't want to lose you. I should know. I found half of them for you. They know a good thing when they see it. The worst you'll get is a written warning. Dewey is a different matter, seducing women whose organizations are dependent on him for funding. I think the council will take a very dim view of that. He probably did it all on expenses. When I give them the dates of the weekend conferences and the fundraising trips to London, I'm sure they'll look into it. If I'm right, that's fraud. He might go to jail. I hope you were worth it. She sits beside the bed, unable to control her crying. You could try to dig him out by denying everything. She's holding one hand out towards me, shaking her head as she continues to cry. I'm calm, unaffected by her outpouring of grief. She's grieving for what she must know has just ended. I wait for her to stop crying, and eventually she does. She dries her eyes and tries to compose herself. So, what happens now? If you're not coming home, where will you go? I'll stay here until I can cope on my own. Then I'll find somewhere to live. I'll let you know where to find me if you decide to sell a house. You can send me my half. No, I mean us. What happens to us? Well, the doctor reckons that clean breaks heal faster, so perhaps you'd better leave now and not come back. But I love you. Then set me free. Her head goes down, and she swallows. For the first time in her life together, she's given up. Accepting defeat, she gets up, comes to the bed, kisses my cheek, then turns and walks to the door. She wipes away a tear, gives me a wave, and then she's gone. It's not over. Not yet. Not for her. She'll be back to try again. The boys will be in to see me, and they'll put pressure on me to go home, to give her another chance. Who knows? If they keep it up long enough, they may even find out about the paralysis. It will make no difference. It's like a switch has flipped in my brain. For the first time, I am top of my priority list. I don't need anyone's pity. With what is in my head, I don't need legs. The college won't move my lab to the ground floor or to a building with a lift. I can probably negotiate a severance deal and insurance payments. I'll have some time to bring my skills up to date. Perhaps the doctor is right. I am a lucky man, lucky to be alive, lucky to have found out when I still have time to start again. I'm lucky to have the cash to tide me over until I get back up the ladder. Why then do I feel so empty inside? I don't want to do this. I never do. I must have given 24 or more presentations and lectures in the last year, but I'm still not used to it. The butterflies are fluttering in my stomach as I walk through Embankment Gardens towards Savoy Place. Good morning, Michael, I say as I reach my destination. Michael Faraday says nothing. Statues are like that. He just stands looking out across the gardens and the river. You haven't seen a nice young lady, have you? About 5 feet 8 inches, long dark hair, usually in a ponytail, high cheekbones, a lovely figure, but she's hidden under trousers and a loose sweater. No, I didn't think so. She'll be late. They always are, aren't they? We've struck up a bit of a relationship, Michael and I. He's the quiet one, always gives me a chance to speak, and yes, he's a hero of mine. No visit to London is complete without a quick word with Michael. Today, I'm visiting his home, the Institute of Engineering Technology, as an invited speaker. I just wish Lauren would get here. She knows exactly when to start the video and change the slides without me having to tell her. I don't want to brief anyone else. I hope she hasn't missed her train. I say this while the statue remains silent. My thoughts are disturbed by the click-clack of high heels behind me. I turn, and there she is, wearing a blue skirt suit and high heels. You've got legs. Oh, you've noticed. I only bring them out on special occasions, and you did say I had to smarten up a bit. She spun around for me. Well, how do I look? I looked up at the statue. Well, Michael, what do you think? I paused before turning back to her. Michael thinks you look absolutely gorgeous. And what about you? You'll do. Come on, we need to make sure everything is set up right, and I'll introduce you to a few people. She looped her arm through mine, and we turned towards the main entrance. I reach up to rub the statue's foot. Wish me luck, I say to Michael as we head towards the steps. Good luck. I stop and turn around. There is no one behind me. Everyone is going about their business. Now what? Asks Lauren. Did you hear that? Someone said good luck. Now I'm getting worried. Talking to statues is one thing, but when they answer back, that's something else. All I heard was the traffic. I'd better not tell them that one back at the lab. They'll think you've really lost it. We walk up the steps, and I hold the door for her as she slits her arm through mine. I am conscious of the admiring glances. I know what they're thinking when they look at me. Lucky guy. How did he manage to attract her? He's either very wealthy or has some other impressive quality. Back in the day, I would have had similar thoughts. They're wrong, of course. We work together. We're friends, but we don't have a personal relationship. At 32, she's a little over half my age. She's a great person, and one day she'll make someone very happy, but not me. She'll want children, but I've been there and done that. Maybe it's selfish, but at 50 years old, I have no desire to go through it again. Oh yes, I got children, 2 boys, Ross and Jamie. Don't blame me. My wife chose the names. I've got one of those as well, a wife, though none of us see much of each other now. It's been 5 years since we split. The boys share their visiting time between us. Ross got married 2 years ago. That was the last time I saw her. We didn't get a chance to talk. What's this? A reception committee. There are 3 of them standing between us in the lecture theater. I recognize the one in the middle, Thomas Horn, president of the Institute. As he offers me his hand, I am aware of the cameras flashing. That's something else I've had to get used to over the last year. They're not paparazzi. These folks normally come from in-house magazines. They're not intrusive, but sometimes you just wish they weren't there. Mr. Fletcher, welcome to the Institute. I don't like to disillusion him, but I've been a member for 25 years and have been here several times before. No reception committee in those days. It's wonderful how much difference an appearance on TV makes. He introduces his 2 associates, then tells them about me. Mr. Fletcher is the man who made the bionic arm shown on Techno's spot last week. No, Mr. Horn, Mumford Labs made the arm. I can assure you it was a team effort. Yes, of course, but you were the leader of that team. Yes, I am, but each of us plays our own part. Dr. Stockbridge here is our mechanical wizard. She is equally deserving of any credit. Their faces take on a shocked expression as Lauren offers her hand. Then, after more handshaking and exchanging of pleasantries, we pass into the lecture theater. You did that on purpose. You love to embarrass the old guard, don't you? They deserved it. They should know better. Attitudes like theirs stop women from coming into engineering. Well, since we are such a good team, perhaps you can get us both a cup of coffee while I check out the facilities. I've got to admit, working with Lauren has its advantages. Watching her climb up onto the stage revealed one of them. Her skirt hitched up slightly, and as she bent forward, it pulled tight across her figure. I sigh, some lucky person will get to be close to her. I go off in search of coffee. A look back at Lauren reminds me of what's missing in my life. I miss the company at home. If Lauren thinks talking to statues is strange, what would she make of talking to toasters and kettles? I miss the feel of a companion in my bed at night, reaching out in the morning. And I miss the good morning kisses. Oh yes, the intimacy is nice, but I can get that elsewhere. My God, the last time I was in Boston, Cheyenne nearly overwhelmed me. What that girl didn't know about physical closeness wasn't worth knowing. People told me Americans were enthusiastic about English accents, but Cheyenne even wanted me to speak while I was with her. The issue was that we couldn't be together without intense passion, and that's not what I miss. I return to the lecture theater with 2 coffees as delegates start arriving. I take a seat in the front row, watching Lauren get everything ready. I imagine what it must be like to wake up next to her in the morning. I imagine she would be softer, more tender than Cheyenne. Doubtless, some lucky person will find out soon enough. Of course, it's my own fault I feel like this. I have a wife who still sends me birthday cards every year, invites me to spend Christmas with her and the family, and for some reason, even marks our wedding anniversary. She'd take me back any time I wanted. The boys have said as much, but I can't bring myself to test it. She had an affair with a man who controlled much of her funding while I had been working hard to ensure she had the support needed to fulfill her potential. She was spending her free time with someone else. I never really gave her a chance to explain. What explanation could there be? I didn't tell her that finding out contributed to my accident. I didn't even tell her I was paralyzed from the waist down. She had to find that out from my boss. I didn't want her pity or for her to come to me to ease her guilt. I went off to university in my wheelchair and started a PhD. When Mumford came along, I put the PhD on the back burner. The doctors and consultants all told me that the use of my legs should come back. However, as an engineer, I work with worst-case scenarios. It came as a big surprise when feelings started to return, and the muscles began to function again. 15 months after the accident, I was starting to walk again. A year of physiotherapy later, and no one would believe I had a problem. "Where's my skinny latte?" she asks as she plunks herself down in the seat next to mine. I reach over to the seat on the other side and pick up her cup, passing it to her. "Just white coffee, I'm afraid." She turned her nose up at it. "Think yourself lucky to have filter coffee. When I started coming here, the only coffee was instant." She takes her coffee and sips it. The second sip tells me it's acceptable. "What are we on, boss?" "Last spot before lunch. Prime position, so we got a bit of a wait then, about an hour and a half. We have some interesting papers being presented first. Just sit back and enjoy them. It's our turn now. Lauren and I take the stage. My paper is devoted to the control system we developed. However, I know from experience that we will get questions on every aspect of our limb development. I introduce the paper, and Lauren runs the video. Some people in the audience understand how difficult these things are when we show our subject holding a wine glass in his bionic hand and tipping it up to sip. I hear a few audible gasps. I describe the multi-layered system of control and take them through the way different problems are handled. And then it's over, and we are fielding questions. I can see Lauren is really getting into it as she fields questions on weight distribution and power transmission. Then comes a question that surprises me. "Why did you give up teaching?" For a moment, I'm stunned, but then I come back with, "Because I was a terrible teacher." It takes a particular person to be good at teaching, and I'm not that person. The first bit causes a titter from the audience, but they soon calm down. "You weren't that bad. You got me into university, and now here." "I'm sorry, it's a bit dark in here, sir." "What's your name?" "Daniel Reynolds." "Ah, yes, I remember you, Daniel. Perhaps we could have a chat at lunchtime." The MC tells them, "This is the last question," and her voice rings out over the PA system. "Dr. Fletcher, it is Dr. Fletcher, isn't it? Where did she get that from?" I hadn't attended the ceremony and told hardly anyone. "Yes, as a matter of fact, but it's of no consequence." Lauren's face takes on a surprised expression. Even through the theater PA system, I can recognize her voice. "What makes you give up on a project?" I know the significance of the question, even if the audience doesn't. For the first time, I'm struggling for an answer. Lauren comes to my aid and snatches up the microphone. He never gives up. He just files them away and waits for the situation to change. The questioner comes back for one last try. "So what needs to happen for you to go back to a project you previously abandoned?" As Dr. Stockbridge said, we wait for something to change. We review projects, both active and dormant, at regular intervals. If something has changed that makes the project viable, we reopen it. Sometimes a member of the team might show us we were wrong to shelve it in the first place. The MC announces that lunch is served, and the audience leaves. I turn to see Lauren giving me a curious look. "Dr. Fletcher, when were you going to tell me?" I didn't want to make a fuss. People might think I was trying to compete. Don't be daft. Nobody at Mumford cares about things like that. "I'm glad you finished it, but I'm curious as to why." I hate loose ends, and the people in America thought it would give the lectures a higher status. It really is no big deal. It seemed to be important to someone. "Who is that woman?" "She's my wife. For some reason, she wants me to know that she's been keeping tabs on me." "Your wife? And you didn't know she was going to be here?" "We're estranged. I think that's the word. What I don't understand is how she got in here. This event is supposed to be closed to members and their guests. She's ambushed you, hasn't she?" I nod and feel her arm around my waist. We could turn the tables on her by going out to lunch. No, the brief is that we spend lunchtime networking. Lauren finishes collecting her things and then takes my arm. Come on, Dr. Fletcher, let's get some lunch. We step out into the main hall and then into the dining room, where we find a sumptuous buffet laid out. Lauren goes ahead of me, adding things to her plate. I'm conscious of someone close behind me, so I'm not surprised when I hear a voice. You're wrong. You were a great teacher. If it hadn't been for you, I might have been heading into a war zone instead of attending events like this at the company's expense. Oh well, you were a one-off, Daniel. And who is to say I was right? But you were. Get your degree first, you said. Then you can go in as an officer. So I got my degree. I learned so much that I realized I didn't want to join the Navy anymore. I wanted to design things, build new systems. You knew that would happen. You give me more credit than I deserve. I saw how challenges affected you. I knew there was something powerful between those ears of yours. You just had to wake up and realize it. He smiles at me, recalling something I used to tell them at the start of every course. I tap Lauren on the shoulder, and she turns to face us. Lauren, I'd like you to meet Daniel Reynolds, one of my students from my teaching days. Dan, this is Dr. Lauren Stockbridge, my colleague from Mumford Labs. Lauren offers her hand, and Daniel shakes it. He gives me a knowing smile. I was going to ask if you fancied a beer tonight, but I guess you've got better things to do. I'm sure we'd love to have a beer with you tonight, wouldn't we, Lauren? Only if we can start in the Savoy. I want to be able to say I've eaten at the Savoy Hotel. I won't tell them it was only bar snacks. Daniel laughs and immediately agrees, leaving to get back to his lunch. Lauren stands before me, looking as good as I remember. She's put on a little weight, but only in the places that enhance her appearance. I stand there just taking her in. Her hair is perfect, makeup just so, and she's wearing a pale green skirt suit that shows off her legs, which I've always admired. You're looking well, John. You're not looking so bad yourself. For a moment, we just stand there looking at each other. What are you doing here, Caroline? I came to see you. I thought perhaps if I asked in person and gave you plenty of notice, you might be able to spend Christmas with us this year. Lauren is shaking my arm. Lauren, this is Caroline, his wife. Caroline's announcement sounds like a challenge to me. She stares at Lauren, daring her to respond, and Lauren is not disappointed. Oh, so you're the one. And what is that supposed to mean? The mystery wife that everyone knows about, but no one ever sees. And that includes John. I admit Lauren's reaction takes me by surprise. Normally, she is my calming influence, but now she seems ready for a fight. If you'll allow me, ladies, I'll finish the introductions. Caroline, this is my friend and colleague Dr. Lauren Stockbridge. Lauren picks up on my tone of voice and makes her excuses, leaving us. I look at Caroline, and for a moment, all the old emotions come flooding back. Even now, after 5 years, I still want to embrace her. Perhaps that's why I cut myself off from her for so long. I fight the urge to hug her and try to remain calm. What is it you want from me, Caroline? What I really want is you. But for now, I'll settle for a chance to talk. We never really talked, did we? People are starting to gather around. It happens a lot these days. Ever since the media got interested in the arm, I rarely get to finish lunch. Everyone wants to talk to me. But not here, not now. Caroline, how about tonight? Maybe we could have dinner or something. Her face lights up the way it used to when we were first married. That would be lovely. Thank you. Okay, meet me in the bar of the Savoy Hotel about 6.30. She reaches out and touches my arm. Thank you, John. I'll look forward to it. Her eyes convey that she really means it. She turns and walks away. Dr. Fletcher, says the man standing by my left shoulder. It started. I'll be lucky to eat much of the food on my plate. Across the room, Lauren is talking to a young man I don't recognize. She notices me looking and rolls her eyes. Oh dear, there's another young man wasting his time. I finish my wine and eat half the food on my plate when they call us back in for the afternoon presentations. I find my seat, and Lauren slips into the seat beside me. She didn't stay long. I thought you had stuff to talk about. We do, but this isn't the place. I'm sorry. I planned to take you out tonight as a sort of thank you. But now I'll be taking Caroline instead. She puts her hand on top of mine. Her touch feels reassuring. Her hand, though softer than a man's, has a practical quality, likely from working with tools. It's not just about the softness, but the warmth and care it conveys that makes me place my other hand on hers. I can't deny I'm a bit disappointed. I had hoped we could spend more time together. I don't get to London much, and you need to get out more. When it comes down to it, she's your wife, and like it or not, you must feel something for her, or you'd be divorced by now. I turn and look into her eyes. If you knew the conflicts going on in my head, you wouldn't say that. It's just easier to see the right thing to do when you're not involved. Thanks, I say, patting her hand before turning my attention back to the stage. She doesn't move her hand but leaves me to think for a few moments. John, you do know I'm always here for you, don't you? Anytime, anywhere. You only have to call. I pat her hand again. What would I do without you? Anytime, anywhere. You only have to call. I pat her hand again. What would I do without you? Exactly what you do now, just with someone else. We fall silent as the first afternoon presentation starts. I feel guilty for not giving the presentations my full attention. I'll read the papers later. My mind is preoccupied with Caroline. Can Lauren be right? Do I still love her? Is that why I haven't divorced her? Seeing her today brought back all those feelings. I really wanted to embrace her. One thing is certain. I need to sort out my emotions. The event is over for today. Lauren and I make our way back to our hotel. She goes up to her room while I have a word with the concierge. After a shower and changing into more casual clothes, I return to the foyer where I'm talking to the concierge again. The lift doors open, and Lauren steps out wearing a sparkly silver cocktail dress that stops just above the knee and shows a little cleavage. Her hair, no longer pulled back into a ponytail, bounces off her shoulders as she walks over. She carries a dark green trench coat. The sight of her takes my breath away. Wow. I mean, just wow. If you're trying to make me regret standing you up tonight, you're doing a fantastic job. She comes over and grabs my arm. You didn't stand me up. It's not like we had a date or anything. I just thought we might go out somewhere, so I brought this dress. Well, I'm sure you won't be out of place in the Savoy bar. Let me help you with your coat. I hold her coat open and help her put it on. She turns and takes my hands in hers. Be careful tonight, John. She ambushed you today, caught you in a place where you wouldn't want her creating a scene. You don't do that unless you want something. Just make sure you don't give her anything you don't want to. She lets go of my hands and adjusts my shirt collar and jacket, surprising me by kissing my cheek. What was that for? Just to remind you I'm always here for you. She pats my chest and then loops her arm through mine. We set off across the Strand heading for the Savoy. Caroline is already there, sipping on orange juice. She seems surprised when I turn up with Lauren, taking in every detail of a younger woman's appearance. A look of disappointment spreads across her face. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were going out as a group. Don't worry, Caroline. I think he has a plan, but he hasn't told me what it is. All will be clear once Daniel arrives. When Daniel arrives, wearing jeans and a puffer jacket, he looks a bit embarrassed. I was expecting to go down the pub, just the two of us. Now I feel a bit out of place. I order a beer for him and outline my plan. Dan, I'm hoping you'll do me a favor. Lauren has always wanted to see The Lion King, and I had planned to take her. However, something else has come up, and I've had to change my plan. So I wondered if you'd be kind enough to escort her to the theater. Well, yeah, I suppose. But what about Lauren? Lauren giggles as Daniel starts to blush, but soon regains his composure. He looks across to Lauren, who is sitting on a bar stool with her legs crossed. I'm sorry. I mean, I'd love to. I was just a bit surprised. That's all. I catch Lauren's eye. Are you okay with this? I whisper to her. She nods back and whispers, he's quite sweet. I hope Daniel hasn't heard that. No man wants to be thought of as sweet. I hand the company credit card to Lauren. Get yourself something to eat. Your tickets are at the box office. Just give them my name. As they leave, Caroline nudges me. You have her well trained. Her disappointment hardly showed. I don't know what you mean. She wanted to see The Lion King. Now she gets to go with someone her own age. Caroline shakes her head. So, what are we going to do? We'll finish our drinks, then we're off to St. Martin's Theater to see The Mousetrap. Okay, that sounds nice. I take it you'd rather see The Lion King. Well, yes, but The Mousetrap is fine. Good, because that's what was available at short notice. The concierge gave me a list, and I chose The Mousetrap. It's all right, John. I'm sure The Mousetrap will be fine. Good. Now, before we go, I have a question that's been bugging me all day. How did you get into the seminar? It's supposed to be members only. I came as Daniel's guest. You and Daniel? Surely you're not. Good God. No. He came to the house looking for you. We got chatting, and he said you would be presenting a paper, so I asked him to get me in. Oh, John, I'm so glad I came. I saw you up on the stage with everyone hanging on your every word. I was so proud. I wanted to jump up and tell everyone, that's my husband. Then it hit me. I don't really have the right to say that anymore. Well, I am still your husband, unless you've divorced me without me knowing. You could, you know. I've been gone long enough. You know me better than that. I don't believe in divorce. Even if you divorce me, I will still be your wife. We committed for life, and that means life for me. We committed to exclude all others. You didn't have much trouble breaking that one, she whines. I lost my way for a while. I started to believe that I was as fantastic as everyone kept telling me. I put so much into making the success of everything that I felt entitled to enjoy myself, and you didn't think you could enjoy yourself with me. It wasn't like that, John. I know it's difficult to understand, but spending all my time working made me feel guilty about enjoying myself with you. It was like, I shouldn't be here. I should be working. Trying to pull the project together. All those people depended on me. Didn't stop you enjoying yourself with Dewey, though. No, it didn't. That's where he was clever. He made it sound like I was working for the project. It started with dinners where there would be people who funded projects like ours, so it was like being there to secure funding. After a couple of weeks, the potential funders stopped turning up, but we did get some grants. When that happened, he made it sound like it was all down to him. I felt as if I owed him something. It was all very subtle, but I did feel pressured. When he asked me to go to London with him, I felt I owed him. So you owed him your body. Oh, don't, John, please. I've been through this so many times, and you couldn't make me feel any worse than I already do. The physical aspect didn't come into it for me. It was like the price I paid for having a little fun I should have been having with you. If it all started out so innocently, why didn't you tell your husband about these cozy dinners with prospective funders? Come to that. You could have invited him. Tears are welling up in her eyes. She's had 5 years to rehearse this, and still can't do it without crying. She takes a deep breath and tries to control herself. I don't know. I've been over it time after time, and I still can't come up with an answer. I wish I could. It was like work and home were two different worlds, and you didn't exist in the work world. I existed, all right. As she pulls out a tissue and dabs at her eyes, I glance at my watch. Your coat. It's curtain up at 7:30. We need to get a move on. She picks up her coat, and I help her put it on. On the way out of the Savoy, the concierge offers to call a taxi for us, but I decline. On a dry night like this, The best way from the Savoy to the other side of Covent Garden is to walk. We set off back across the Strand. She takes my hand as we cross the road and is reluctant to let go. Realizing she won't keep up with my normal pace in her high heels, I slow down to a leisurely stroll. I was worried you'd never be able to do this. Walking, I mean. You and me both. Walking, I mean. You and me both. I should have believed the doctors. Why did you hide that from me? I was devastated when I found out you were in a wheelchair. It really hurt to know you would rather depend on strangers than me. I didn't want you fussing around me out of guilt or pity. If you'd known, it would have taken a police presence to keep you away from me. It wouldn't have been guilt or pity. Well, perhaps partly out of guilt, but mainly out of love. Is it so hard to believe that I love you? At the time, Caroline, yes, it was. You destroyed me that night when the paramedic told me what they were going to do to get me out of that car. I told him not to bother. She gasps and stops walking, turning me around to look at her. She looks deep into my eyes. Oh my God, you really mean it, don't you? You really wanted to die. At the time, it seemed to solve all the problems. I wouldn't have had to deal with the situation, and you'd be free to be with Dewey. I've told you before, it was never him I wanted. Do you think I'd be here now if I wanted someone else? She throws her arms around me and holds me tight, her head resting on my chest. The noise of the traffic drowns out what she was saying. I think she may be crying. She releases me and steps back. I can see the black lines where her mascara has run down her cheeks. She reaches into her bag for a tissue and dabs at her eyes. I take the tissue from her and gently wipe the black marks from her cheeks. I think we better stop talking about this for now. Maybe after the theater, eh? I smile at her, and she tries to smile back. We walk on into and across Covent Garden. She points out a large, grandiose building lit up against the night sky. What is that place? The Royal Opera House, I say. What? I'm surprised Dewey didn't take you there. It's very impressive. If you think the outside is impressive, you should see the inside. I attended a function there a few months back. I thought they should be represented, and it fell to me. She cuddles up to my arm, as if I've impressed her somehow. We walk onto the theater, and I collect our tickets with 10 minutes to spare before curtain up. I must find the ladies' room. I need to do some running repairs, she says. She leaves me in the foyer, and I kill time looking around, waiting for a return. She always likes souvenirs from trips to the theater, so I buy her a program. When she comes back, it's 2 minutes to curtain up. She sees the program, and her face lights up. She kisses me on the cheek, and we hurry into the theater. People grumble about having to get up for us to get by as we reach our seats. The house lights go down, and we sit. I put my hand up on the armrest. She covers my hand with hers, and gives it a squeeze. As the stage lights come up, I look at her. It feels like I've gone back 10 years, before Dewey and before her job took her away from me. We are a happy married couple enjoying a night at the theater. I get that warm feeling in my chest just looking at her, and I realize it doesn't hurt anymore. I remember her putting her job before us, her affair with Dewey, even the night when I finally knew what was going on. Yes, I remember it all, but it no longer hurts more than the pull that went through my guts. I can talk about it without wanting to throw up or burst into tears. What I feel when I look at her now is affection. She catches me looking at her and manages a small smile before I turn my attention to the play. By the time the house lights go up for the interval, we are both engrossed. I offer to fight my way to the bar for her. No, thank you, John. I'd rather sit and talk if that's all right with you. Fine. What do you want to talk about? Let's start by talking about you. How have you been? Oh, you know, up and down. I was down when I thought I'd never get out of the wheelchair, but the university was good to me. Because of my industrial and teaching experience, they gave me work supervising labs and classes. Then there was my research. That's how I came into contact with Mumford. They told me I could work for them and work on the PhD part-time. I'd only been with them for 6 months when the feeling in my legs returned. They must think a lot of you if you can do all of this on expenses. Daniel and Lauren's meal and our hotel rooms are on expenses. I'm paying for everything else. I'm not on a lecturer's salary now. Is there really that much money in prosthetics? The arm and the walking exoskeleton are mainly for headline grabbing. It gets Mumford noticed, and the research is all funded by the type of people who invite you to the Royal Opera House. They'll make money on them, but their main business is in control systems. I've got a great contract that allows me to go on lecture tours and pocket most of the fees. The arm has generated more demand there as well. I spent 6 weeks in America this year. What about your personal life? Are you happy? Is there someone in your life who makes you happy? I might have known that question was coming. What do I tell her? That I'm as happy as a pig? Or do I tell her the truth, that I spend all my time working to avoid spending time in my empty house? I decide on a compromise. Yes, I suppose I'm happy, though I don't have time for a personal life. No, there is nobody special in my life at the moment. A few women pass through, but none I've wanted to start a relationship with. Not even Dr. Stockbridge. Good God, no. Whatever gave you that idea? You seemed so close, and although she hides it well, she was disappointed when you told her of the arrangements tonight. We are friends and colleagues. I'm old enough to be her father. She'll be much happier with Daniel. Tonight, I'd better change the subject, or I'll end up telling her I get more attention now than I did 5 years ago. What about you, Caroline? Government inspector now, I am told. How do you enjoy that? I don't. I'm being asked to check that kindergartens and nursery classes are doing things I don't believe to be right. Then, in the reports, I'm supposed to defend the inspector's viewpoint. How do you defend the indefensible? So I take the job. Well, you were right. The committee just gave me a rap on the knuckles, but things were never the same. There was no publicity when Roger was fired, but word got around. People who used to be friends stopped calling. Then I heard a rumor that I'd abandoned you because you were crippled. I just wanted to get away, to work with people who didn't know me. The inspector's job was offered, and I took it. Now I know how you felt doing a job you hated. I hope you're not blaming me for spreading the rumors. I didn't tell a soul. She takes my hand in both of hers and kisses the back of my fingers. The thought never crossed my mind. It's not your style, lurking in the shadows, whispering in receptive ears. If you wanted to say something, you would make sure I knew it was you. Oh no, it was probably a secretary in the town hall. That's how these things usually start. And anyway, that's all over now. So, what are you going to do now? That's part of what I wanted to talk to you about. I've been offered a new job, Deputy Head of Children's Services. You don't need my approval, Caroline. Take the job. It will give you a chance to really make a difference, and there are few things worse than doing a job you hate. Well, I do sort of need your approval. You see, the job is in Cambridge. We'd almost be neighbors. I won't take it if you find it embarrassing. Take the job, Caroline. Apart from work, I don't spend much time in Cambridge. Her voice drops to a whisper, as if she's frightened to voice what she has to say. I rather hope that if I took the job, you might spend more time in Cambridge. Yes, I see it for the plea that it is. I'd expected it to come much earlier and be far more blunt. She was waiting for a response, one that at this stage it is. I'd expected it to come much earlier and be far more blunt. She was waiting for a response, one that at this stage of the game I don't want to give her. Right now, I don't know how I feel. I want her. I know that every time I look at her, I want to wake up next to someone. I want someone to be with in the evenings and weekends. I want someone to talk to over the breakfast table. I want to tell her I'd like that very much, but I don't. Instead, I pretend not to hear her. The bell from the bar tells us that the performance will restart in 5 minutes. People are coming back to their seats, and the conversation ends as we settle in for the second half of the play. After the ovation, the cast appears and asks us not to reveal the plot. Then we leave. There's a really good pizzeria up the road. We could go for a bite to eat. I'd like that. It's only a 5-minute walk to the pizzeria, and we are soon seated and placing our order. Caroline is fascinated by the chef spinning the pizza dough above his head. You certainly seem to know your way around the West End. I'm impressed. I've been here quite a lot over the last 3 years, and I've never had a problem remembering the geography. Our wine arrives, and I'm offered a taste. The waiter pours a glass for each of us. Caroline picks up her glass and offers a toast. To better times. I'll drink to that, I say, and we touch glasses. So, Caroline, you've asked me about my private life. How is yours? There used to be someone, but I drove him away 5 years ago. Since that day, I've been waiting for him to come back. I've had periods of doubt and despair, times when I thought it was never going to happen. During those times, I have allowed myself to be entertained by members of the opposite sex. There was never anyone special, certainly no one I would consider a serious relationship. Our food arrives, and it surprises her. You can get pizza all over the world, and for many people, pizza is pizza. But there is a big gap between the best and the average. This is one of the best, she says, impressed. As we eat, we talk. I know it's going to hurt her, but I need to tell her about the women in my life. I can't make the same claim as you. I've not lived like a monk these last 5 years. It surprised me how many women were happy to be with me. I hold my left hand up, showing my wedding ring still on my finger. For some women, this doesn't mean a lot. It was thoughtless, really. I hadn't meant it as a jab at her, but I can see that it hurts just the same. We finish our meal, and they bring the coffee, a good Italian blend. This normally means the end of the evening, and I start my end-of-date speech. Well, Caroline, it has been a surprisingly pleasant evening. But she reaches out and covers my hand with hers. Come back to my hotel with me. I want to show you something. I couldn't resist a little snigger before replying. Do you really think that is a good idea? Haven't I seen all you have to offer? I'm being serious. I brought something with me, and I'd really like you to see it. Please, John, come back with me. You don't have to stay. I just want to show it to you. We hail a cab and ride back to her hotel, a Hotel Ibis, a little Spartan but perfectly comfortable. In her hotel room, I sit on the bed while she rummages around in her suitcase. She passes me a book and comes to sit beside me, her skirt riding up slightly, showing off her legs. I smile as I note she is wearing stockings. I open the book and find a surprise on the first page. It's a picture of me in my wheelchair being pushed across the university campus by an attractive young woman. That's the university campus. Who took this? I did. When Bob told me they'd let you go because it was too expensive to make your lab wheelchair friendly, I was shocked. As soon as I got your address, I drove up to talk to you. I was going to beg you to let me back into your life. I hoped that once you realized you needed someone, you might let me back in. When I got there, I found you already had all the support you needed. Was she one of your little admirers? No, I was still too angry for anything like that. I'm ashamed to say I was pretty unpleasant to most of the girls at that point. She looks happy. I look at the picture again. Yes, that's Amy. She was one of the more persistent ones. She wanted to repair the damage others had done to me. I treated her badly, took all the help she offered, but gave her nothing in return. What puzzles me now is, if you traveled all the way up to visit me, why did you leave without doing so? Look at her. She's young and beautiful. How could I compete with her? Look at the pair of you. You are both so happy. My nerves failed me, and I could see you didn't need me. I cried most of the way home. I turned the page, and there are 2 pages of a paper I had written. It ended up being part of my thesis but was published separately. There's a photo of me in the chair wearing a robe and gown. Where is that? In the cathedral. You were there for a graduation ceremony. Right. The administrators had pressured me into attending. They thought it showed them in a good light to have disabled members of staff. You were there. No. I bought a CD of the ceremony, and Ross pulled that picture from it. Following that, I found pictures on Mumford's website. As I flick through her album, I see it holds details of everything I've achieved in the last 5 years. The final page shows a picture of me with Joe Brinsley, the presenter of Techno Spot. Is she as pretty in real life, without all the makeup? I would say prettier. She has a nice natural beauty, and she's good company. You went out with her? Yes, we had dinner together after the recording. I found her very friendly and good fun, though not my type. She nudges me playfully. Yeah, you wish. I happen to know she's happily married to Ewan Griffiths. I don't think you stand much chance against an international rugby player. As I said before, for some women, a wedding ring doesn't mean a lot. Oh my God, you didn't. No, I didn't. I can't do that to someone else just because someone did it to me. Her eyes show that she's been hurt by what I said. I feel guilty. I hadn't thought about it before. I put my arm around her shoulders and hug her. What made you do all this? I ask, looking down at the book. In a strange way, it made me feel closer to you. It was like I was sharing some of those things with you. If you were so desperate to be with me, what took you so long? I tried at the wedding 2 years ago, but you ran away as soon as the speeches were over. You couldn't get away quick enough. I had a plane to catch. I know that's what you said, but I'm sure you could have arranged things for your son's wedding. I did, but my flight got canceled. The only thing available was Saturday evening. So you weren't trying to avoid me. No, I'll be honest. I wasn't looking forward to seeing you, but I wasn't trying to hide. I had an information exchange meeting at 9 a.m. with our partner in Boston. She gets off the bed and kisses my cheek while I sit looking at the book. I've got to go to the bathroom. She disappears into the bathroom. I'm completely taken aback by the amount of stuff she has in her album. How did she get all this? Had she been stalking me? I call out a question to her, but she doesn't answer. I realize that she probably can't hear me. The bathroom door opens, and I turn around. Her appearance takes me completely by surprise. With one hand on the doorframe and the other on her hip, she stands there framed in the doorway. She's wearing a red teddy. Well, how do I look? Breathtaking. She starts to walk towards me, swinging her hips as she moves. Not in the same league as Dr. Stockbridge. I wouldn't know. I've never seen her in anything less than what you saw tonight. Caroline stands in front of me as I sit on the bed. She's still a good-looking woman. It is all I can do to stop myself from reaching out to her. She drops down to her knees and takes my hands in hers. In case you hadn't realized, this is an invitation. I'm completely yours if you want me. I know what I want, but what about you? She pulls my hands and holds them against her body. It can be just for now, just for tonight, or for the rest of our lives. Everything you see here is yours to do what you will. I love you, John, and I want you to love me again. I let you down, and I let myself down, but I've paid every day of the last 5 years, missing you in my bed, knowing that you'd shut me out of your life. At times, it was only our 2 sons that gave me the will to carry on. I've seen everything you've achieved, and it hurts not being able to share it with you. Please, even if it's only for tonight, be my husband again. Make love to me. She stands, and placing one knee on the bed, eases my jacket off my shoulders. What's this all about, Caroline? You said you'd like to talk, but this is a full-scale seduction. What's going on? She kissed me. I wanted you to know how much I want and miss you, John. I've been aching for you ever since I saw you get up on that stage this morning. She hugged me tight. Is this what I've missed? Having her so close to me, it feels so right. There is a lot more if we are together, she said softly. I realized she might see intimacy as the way to win me back, but I questioned if she truly understood me or had listened to me at all. I gently separated myself from her. Caroline, we still have a long way to go, but it's a start, isn't it? She wrapped her arms and legs around me, pulling herself in close. Maybe, Caroline, that's all I can say. Take the job, and move if you want. I can't promise you anything." She pulled herself even closer. "I've got to go. Can't you stay a little longer? I'll treat you to breakfast before you leave." "No time for breakfast. I must get back to my hotel, get packed, and be back at Savoy Place by 10 o'clock. She held onto my arm. "Stay with me, John. We have so much to talk about. I need you, John, more than I ever did. Please stay. They'll find someone else. You don't need to be there. Caroline, people are depending on me. You must remember what that's like. I've never let anyone down before, and I'm not starting now." She tried to hold on to me as I walked out of the room. "John, we need to talk. Promise me you'll call." "I'll call you, but I really must leave now." Down the street, I hailed a cab and returned to my hotel. I slept well that night, but woke up late. Glancing at the clock on the nightstand, I realized it was 8:30. Good God, is that the time? I thought. I had to go, and with 5 minutes to spare, I settled into my seat and sighed with relief. "I guess you had a good night," said Lauren as I sat down. "If you're asking if I slept with my wife, no, it did not happen. I was sleeping in my room. Apart from that, I think the evening went well, but now I'm having second thoughts. What about you and Daniel? How did you get on?" "Well," she said, giving me a coy look, then giggling, "he was sweet and a perfect gentleman, if you must know. You were the main subject of conversation. I think you're his role model. He accords you the status you give to Michael Faraday." "Well, he'll never find a statue of me out front of the building." I laughed. "He told me a lot about you as a teacher. He says you were a great teacher. Do you know he spent 3 years working on a problem you set before he left college? Did he find a solution?" "He said he did. He was laughing about it, mentioning something about a chip being programmable." "Oh, so he did solve it." He was angry with himself for not considering that possibility. Daniel was one of the few. There was a group of them, all highly motivated. They all did well. I really don't want to talk about teaching. It was never my finest hour, and I'm not going back. No one expects you to go back, but you talk about it as if it was a period of failure. I thought you should know that your students didn't see it that way. My silence conveyed my desire to drop the subject, and Lauren picked up on it immediately. "Caroline seems nice and quite attractive. Really. Lauren, I never thought you swung both ways. Sorry to disappoint you, but Caroline doesn't. She just punched me in the arm. Men, just because I say she's attractive doesn't mean I want to go to bed with her. I can see why men would want her. That's all." "Yeah, well, unfortunately, one too many did, and she was too receptive. I've already said more than I intended." It was a relief when the keynote speaker for the day took the mic and got the proceedings underway. We watched another 2 presentations before I was called to sit on the expert panel for the question and answer session. It was good to concentrate on their problems. It took my mind off the events of last night. We wrapped up and sent the delegates away to enjoy the weekend. I stepped down from the stage to be greeted by Lauren. "Well done, Oss. You sent them away with plenty to think about. Now, I suppose it's time for us to go home." I just smiled at her. "What's funny? What have you got planned?" "Well, I stood you up last night, so I arranged something to make up for it. We're going to Brown's for lunch." "You didn't stand me up. I had a nice time, and Daniel was positively charming." "Yeah, but I wanted to say a personal thank you for coming down here to help me out. I let you down last night, so I had the concierge book a table for lunch. Come on, no arguments." "There isn't going to be an argument. If she wanted to brag about the Savoy, she would definitely want to have lunch at Brown's." We walked down the Strand, and the questions started. "So, did you have a good night last night? How long has it been since you last saw her?" "I last saw her 2 years ago, but we haven't spoken for 5 years." 5 years, and you're still wearing your wedding ring. You know she wants you back, don't you?" "I ought to. Enough people told me, my sons, my friends, they've all mentioned it at some point. Now she's moving to Cambridge. The pressure will increase, and that's what yesterday was all about. She came to tell me she's moving. Partly yes. She wanted to know if I was all right with it. She wanted a lot more than that. A girl knows these things. It was written all over her face last night. We turned the corner, and I stopped to point across the road to an ordinary-looking building. Voila, Brown's Restaurant. That is Brown's, the place where the Jorge Henrys from the city spend their bonuses. The outside is a big disappointment, she said. In that case, it's a good job we're not eating outside. Come on, our reservation is for 1 o'clock, and people will be waiting at the bar, hoping we don't turn up. We crossed the road and walked into the restaurant. In less than a minute, we were shown to our table. Lauren looked at the menu and let out a whistle. I looked at her in surprise, but I knew what provoked the response. I'd expected something more exotic, especially at these prices. That's the lunch menu, I explained. The more exotic dishes, as you call them, are on the evening menu. Are you sure about this, John? I would be just as happy eating in the station restaurant. Of course I'm sure. Nothing is too good for my right-hand man. She smiled, and somewhat playfully, commented on my supportive role. You're the glue that keeps the team together when I'm not around, the one I rely on to get things done. I want you to know how much I appreciate you. We both laughed when the waiter came to take our order. Lauren took her time choosing, and the waiter grew impatient. I didn't mind. I'd been here before. When the waiter left, Lauren seized the opportunity to ask questions. So, that was the mystery wife last night. Yes, Caroline and I are married. But there's no secret about that. Are you kidding? I've known you for 2 years, and you haven't mentioned her once. The rumors at work say she's on an overseas placement. They say the reason you spend so much time in the States is because she's out there. I might have believed it myself if I hadn't met a young lady called Siovan. The last time I went out to Boston, she seemed quite familiar with you and didn't wear a ring. I could say it's nobody's business but mine. You could, and if you do, I'll shut up and leave you alone. Ever since she showed up yesterday, you've seemed troubled. I think you need to talk to someone, and I'm offering to be that person. She was right. I needed to talk to someone. For 5 years, I'd refused to discuss it, despite several attempts from others. Caroline had told our sons her version of events, which wasn't that far from the truth. They told me how sorry she was, but I'd always refused to talk about it. At the time, it hurt too much. Maybe now is the right time. Are you sure you want to hear this? You might never look at me the same way again. There are people who think that I behave like a spoiled child. I'll worry about that later. I promise I won't judge you. If you want to talk about it, I'm happy to listen. Okay, where do you want me to start? The beginning is a good place. Where is the beginning? I asked myself. I started by telling her about taking the teaching job to avoid moving the boys out of school. When I mentioned Caroline's new job and the way I supported her, Lauren reached out and squeezed my hand. You must have loved her very much. I did. I'm not sure if I still do. I told her about the fateful night when I saw Caroline and Dewey acting affectionately. Then I described the accident that left me in a wheelchair for 18 months. Do you blame her for the accident? No, I blame the driver who pulled out without looking at myself. I shouldn't have been driving in that state. I would have braked quicker if I had been more focused. Our food arrived, and the conversation tapered off. Lauren was impressed by the food. It wasn't gourmet, just good, and she loved it. After finishing our main course, the waiter cleared our plates, and we waited for dessert. Lauren started the questions again. So, how long has it been since you spoke to her? It's been a full 5 years since we talked, not since I was in the hospital. Some of my friends said it was childish. I didn't tell her about the paralysis. I just told her to stay away. If she'd known, her guilt might have pushed her into my life, and I could have stayed for all the wrong reasons. So you hid it from her and went away. Pretty much. I needed to get away and live for myself for a change. I tried the other thing, and it didn't work too well. What about now? You didn't seem that unhappy to see her yesterday, and you never came for breakfast this morning." For the first time, I noticed a look of sadness in her eyes as she talked about the previous night. "You don't expect me to comment on that. A gentleman never does." She blushed, realizing she might have pried a bit too much. Our desserts arrived, and we ate them in relative silence. Lauren's embarrassments seemed to keep her quiet. As we drank our coffee, she reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry. I'm only interested because I care about you." Oh dear, I seem to be digging myself further into a hole. "Don't worry. I'm still trying to sort it out in my head." It was all right for her. She had plenty of time to plan. She knew how it would go and what she was going to say. I had to do it all on the fly. I called for the bill, settled up, and we left the restaurant to head toward the hotel. "Have we got time to say goodbye to Michael?" I asked, laughing. "He's gotten to you, hasn't he?" "Quite right, too. He was quite a man." "Well, the real reason is that I fancy a walk after that lunch. By the way, I solved the mystery of the talking statue. It was Daniel. He arrived as we were going in and heard what you said." We walked towards the impressive frontage of Charing Cross Station, then down to the embankment, turning into Embankment Gardens. She took my hand as we walked past a cafe. If we'd eaten there, perhaps I wouldn't need to walk it off. "Are you saying you didn't enjoy it?" I asked. "Don't be silly. Of course I enjoyed it. But you didn't need to spend so much." We continued walking, enjoying the sunshine, until we came up to the statue. She skipped ahead and looked up at the statue of my hero. "Well, Michael, what do you say? Did our boy do well?" She paused, as if waiting for an answer. "Yes, I thought so too," she said, turning back to me. "Michael says you did very well. He's proud of you." I couldn't help laughing as she spoke to the statue. "Do you think he might help with your other problems?" "I doubt it. Women did as they were told in his day, didn't they, Michael? Is that what you'd like? An obedient servant?" "Certainly not. No one was prouder than me when Caroline showed the world what she could do. It would have been nice if she'd recognized what I gave up for her." The smile disappeared from her face. She grabbed my arm and buried her head in it. "Sorry, boss, I got carried away. I didn't mean to bring up old wounds." "Don't worry, I'm over it now," I said, looking up at the statue. "You see what it's like now, Michael. You should be glad you never had to deal with modern women." She playfully punched me on the arm and grinned. "Well, that's it, Michael. Maybe we'll meet again next year." Lauren was still smiling, and it gave me a warm glow inside. She really is the complete package. Beauty, brains, and charm. She makes me wish I were 10 years younger. "Come on," I said. "Let's get back to the hotel, pick up our bags, and get a cab to the station." We caught the last train before the weekend rush and found seats with a table between us. I was feeling the effects of my lack of sleep, and Lauren got out her iPad. "I'm checking my emails first, then I'll look up Michael Faraday. I ought to know more about him," she said. I smiled at her. "You'll find there's a lot to learn. He was a remarkable man." As I settled into my seat, I tried to stifle a yawn and found it difficult to keep my eyes open. Sleep was beckoning, and I was unable to resist. I walked along the carpeted corridor of an upmarket block of flats. Young Daniel has done well for himself, I thought as I rang the doorbell. I waited, but no one came, so I rang again. Just as I was about to leave, I heard movement on the other side of the door. Daniel opened the door wearing a bathrobe, his hair still wet. "I was in the area and thought I'd drop by," I said. "I wanted to make up for that night we didn't get in London." "Oh yeah. Look, I'm fresh out of the shower. Why don't I get dressed and meet you in the pub across the road in about 10 minutes? I was about to walk away when I heard a familiar voice. "I don't know if you're up for it, but I could use some company right now." Over his shoulder, I saw Caroline walk into the passage wearing nothing but a towel. "Sorry," he said, stepping back to let me pass. I walked into his flat, feeling nothing but disdain for the woman in front of me. She clung to the towel like it was a lifeline, while her other hand covered her mouth. "You're lying. To think I imagined we had a chance of getting back together. I didn't lie to you. I didn't. You told me you and Daniel weren't together. We're not. This is just two people helping each other out." "And what about there being none?" I pressed. "That wasn't a lie. I was just being economical with the truth. I never use my bed." "Come on, John. You've not been living like a monk. You said as much." "Exactly. I was completely honest with you, but it obviously didn't work both ways. Honesty has never been your strong point." She looked in horror as I struggled to pull off my wedding ring. "No, John, please. No." Someone was shaking my shoulder. "John. John." I woke to find the seat opposite me empty. Lauren was sitting beside me, pulling at my right arm. I looked down and saw I was gripping my wedding ring. "You were dreaming. Are you all right?" The train had come to a standstill, and for a moment, I stared out of the window, collecting my thoughts. "Yeah, I'm fine. I just needed to sort a few things out." I twisted my ring, easing it over my knuckle. "Are you sure you want to do that?" "Yes, it's over. There's no going back. I've realized what was bothering me. How do you go from being a reserved person to someone who can suddenly be so forward? Does it matter? From what Sayavan told me, you've hardly been celibate." "No, it probably doesn't, but she led me to believe that even a nun would have more attention than she did. It's not about that anymore. I'm over that. It's the deception. There might be other reasons for the changes, reasons that fit what she told me, but the fact that I'm asking these questions means I don't trust her. After 5 years, I still question everything she tells me." For the first time in 5 years, tears filled my eyes as I finally accepted that my marriage was over. Lauren put her arm around my shoulders and used a tissue to wipe the tears from my eyes. The train moved off, and for the first time, I noticed the station name. Cambridge. "Hey, that's your stop." "It doesn't matter. There are higher priorities here." The train picked up speed as I slipped the ring off my finger and dropped it on the table. Lauren picked up the ring and tried to put it in my pocket. I closed my hand over hers. "No, you keep it. Maybe you'll find some lucky man to give it to." She smiled and put it back on the table. "You're joking. When I get married, we'll have tungsten rings." "That's an unusual choice." "Not really. Tungsten is hard and incredibly strong. That's the kind of marriage I want. Something strong and enduring, not something soft and weak like gold." "Then we'll just have to leave it for the cleaner. You might change your mind." "No, I won't. When I see her, all the memories of those 20-odd years come back. I'm lonely. I need someone in my life, but not her. After 5 years, I can't forget. I don't trust her. I can't spend the rest of my life checking up on her, wondering what she's up to while I'm away. This is a decision I should have made 5 years ago." She held my hand while dabbing at my eyes with her other hand. "You could give it back to Caroline," she suggested, picking up the ring from the table. "I want to talk to her first. Sending it in the post seems cruel." "There's no hurry," she said, dropping the ring into her handbag. "It'll be right here when you decide." It's not far from Cambridge to Ely, and soon the train was slowing down for my stop. We both got up and retrieved our luggage. We stepped from the train and walked to the end of the platform. I stopped at the barrier, expecting her to walk onto the footbridge so she could get on the next train back to Cambridge. "Thanks, Lauren. It's good to know I've got a friend. The train back to Cambridge should be here in 10 minutes. "Oh no, I'm not leaving you here in this state. At the very least, I'm making sure you get home safely." We walked through the barrier and through the station to the taxi rank. In the cab, I gave the driver my address for the short journey to my little cottage. We sat hand in hand. On arrival, I gave the cabbie enough for the return fare and told him to wait. We got out of the cab and walked to my front door. I turned to look at her. "Thanks, Lauren. I'm glad you were here." I leaned in to kiss her cheek, but her hands came around my neck and I found myself kissing her lips. They felt soft and warm. Her lips parted slightly, and I pulled back in time to see the taxi drive away. Dan, I told him to wait. I even paid him to take you back, and I told him to go. Lauren, we can't do this. I'm your boss. I resign. You can't resign. What would I do without you? You don't have to, but if the job is standing between you and me, then I resign as of now. I've held back before because I thought there was a loving wife somewhere. I all but accused Sayavan of wishful thinking, but now I know you're free. Why wait? What am I going to do with you? I hope you are going to open that door and let me find out if everything Vaughn said about you is true. I put my key into the lock and then took her in my arms to kiss her. What a kiss! Our lips parted and we continued to kiss, our lips brushing against each other before we finally parted. I turned the key and opened the door. I hope you're not expecting me to carry you over the threshold. Not yet, but I'm working on that. I held the door open and she walked through. As I turned to follow her, I remembered the surgeon's words from 5 years ago. You are a lucky man, Mr. Fletcher, a very lucky man. 2 years later, coming down the night before is much more civilized. We should do this all the time, Lauren tells me as she finishes the last piece of toast. My imagination runs wild as I watch her put her fingertips into her mouth and remove the traces of butter and marmalade. Yes, it is, but the company won't always pay for it. And it complicates the expenses claimed if I pay for the extra night. So what's different about this time? This time it's your show. You're the one showing off what Mumford can do. I'm just along for the ride. Since the media frenzy died down, no one even notices me. I know that's not true, but I wonder sometimes. Do you miss it, all the attention? Not for 1 second. I enjoyed working on the arm and the walker, but the media attention was always something I tolerated. We get up and leave the dining room. Soon, we are in the lift heading up to our room. We both have things to do before the seminar, so why are you so restless? You seem like a lost soul. What is it you're looking for? Are you thinking about her? I slip my arm around her waist, pull her in close, and kiss her, much to the amusement of other guests. We're still locked in a passionate embrace when the doors open for us to get out. For what it's worth, Caroline barely crosses my mind these days. You're right, I do miss something since we finished the arm project. It isn't the media attention, though. I miss being part of something. Since the arm went into production, they don't know what to do with me. They give me minor tasks and ask me to audit other people's projects. I take out the key and let us into our room. I need something I can really get my teeth into. She smiles at me and lightly touches a small bite mark I gave her the previous night. I think you've been doing enough of that lately. That's not a complaint, you understand. She heads off to the bathroom to freshen up, though I see nothing that needs fixing. I pick up the offers I brought with me and read them through once more. There's always the university. They seem keen to get you. Why are people so keen to get me back into teaching? I've said before, I'm no good at it. She calls back through the open door. What about the TV job? You keep saying you want more young people going into engineering. What better way to do it than present it on TV? Her head goes back into the bathroom, and I peruse the offer from the TV company. The money is substantial, and it would only tie me up for 2 months of the year. Just keep away from Joe Brinley. I've seen the way she looks at you. That woman is a man-eater. Now, how do I look? She is standing in the bathroom doorway, hands in front of her, looking nervous. Absolutely ravishing. She laughs. You mean ravishing. I know what I mean. Now come over here and let me get started. Down, boy. We don't have time for that. Come on, we need to get over to Savoy Place. She takes my hand, and we head down to the street. Once we leave the roar of the traffic on the Strand, she puts her arm around my waist and pulls me close to her. What's wrong? Got stage fright? Yes, I suppose that's what it is. It's all right for you. You've done plenty of presentations, but this is my first one. For me, Every presentation and lecture was like the first one. Something would be wrong if I wasn't nervous. Don't worry, you've got your cue cards. Just do it the way we rehearsed. Once you get started, you'll be fine. I'll be in the front row, ready to prompt if you need it. She smiles at me and dropped her head on my shoulder as we walk down the slope towards the river. Michael Faraday stands out in the spring sunshine, looking out across the embankment and the River Thames, as he has for many years. He remains unmoved as we walk into his little garden. Lauren reaches up to touch his foot. "Good morning, Michael. It's good to see you again. How does it feel to be the subject of John's first TV show?" "Hold on, nothing's been decided yet." "Oh, come on, John. You've been mulling it over for a couple of days. It's only a matter of time before you realize that you could do both." As a matter of fact, I've already decided to propose it to the university. A bit of TV exposure would do them the world of good. But so far, no one has mentioned Michael. "No, but you won't present a series on great British engineers unless Michael's name is on the list." Strictly speaking, he wasn't an engineer, but you're right, he should and will be included. I look up at the statue. You see what it's like with modern women, Michael. You have to run just to keep up. I reach up and rub his shoe. Anyway, she is the one that needs your blessing today. I'm just along for the ride. I pause as if waiting for an answer. Michael says, "You don't need luck," but he sends it to you anyway. She kisses my cheek, and we turn and leave the garden. We are approaching the main entrance of the building when a young woman carrying a notebook comes down the steps towards us. "Dr. Fletcher. It is Dr. Fletcher, isn't it?" I look at Lauren, then down at the tungsten rings on our fingers. "Yes, it certainly is. Which one would you like to talk to?" Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.